You're listening to West Virginia Week, a regular podcast from West Virginia Public Broadcasting that looks back at the major stories of the week. I'm your host this week, Bill Lynch. On this West Virginia Week, the governor gets pushback over school clothing vouchers, Huntington residents seek to ban flock, and black lung is big again. Let's jump right in with a few short news stories. Governor Patrick Morrisey is getting pushback for the concerns he's raised about school clothing voucher funds and ATMs. Maria Young reports.
Morrisey says he doesn't want taxpayer dollars being used for beer and cigarettes and points out it's impossible to trace how voucher funds that are cashed out are actually used. But multiple thrift stores we checked with say they haven't been given a state vendor ID that would allow customers to use their EBT cards. Instead, some say they direct shoppers to the closest ATMs. Delegate Hollis Lewis, a Democrat from Kanawha County, says the cash disbursements aren't the real problem.
That talking point is a pure distraction. It distracts from the criticism that was laid upon the governor's office for the application process. It's stigmatizing and it's stereotypical, where we're going to try to blame indigent folks for a flaw in the process.
Legislators meet on Tuesday to investigate the clothing voucher funds. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Maria Young in Charleston.
A group of Huntington residents hopes to ban the city from entering into any contracts for mass surveillance systems. Eric Douglas has more.
Members of the Huntington branch of Citizen Action Group began collecting signatures Wednesday for a ballot initiative against AI-powered camera systems like flock cameras. On July 13th, the Huntington City Council approved a contract to install cameras around the city. They were promoted as a deterrent to crime. Matthew Lebo, the democracy organizer for the group, said one of his biggest concerns is how the city's information is used.
Huntington includes a provision in our new flock contracts saying that Flock, a private company, has the right to use our private mass surveillance data for their own internal business purposes.
Lebo said the group collected 100 signatures Wednesday, but expects to need around 4,000 to get the city to call a special election. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, this is Eric Douglas in Charleston.
Coal volumes for two of the nation's biggest railroads are up from last year. As Curtis Tate reports, domestic coal shipments declined amid a flurry of favorable Trump administration policies.
CSX and Norfolk Southern reported their second quarter results late last month, including an increase in coal shipments. CSX coal volume increased 5% in the March to June quarter, while Norfolk Southern's increased 4%. Domestic volume was down for the railroads, while export volume was up. In a presentation to investors, CSX cited higher shipments of coal to overseas markets for steelmaking and electricity production. Norfolk Southern did not include those details, but the railroads overlap. CSX domestic coal declined 2%, while its exports increased 12%. Norfolk Southern's domestic coal declined 8%, while its exports increased 25%. Both railroads ship coal from eastern Kentucky to U.S. power plants and export terminals. I'm Curtis Tate in Richmond.
A former delegate has removed himself from the November general election ballot, avoiding a hearing before the State Election Commission. Eric Douglas has the story.
Secretary of State Chris Warner announced Tuesday afternoon that former delegate David Elliott Pritt has voluntarily withdrawn his candidacy in the 50th Delegate District for the House of Delegates from Fayette County. Pritt was arrested on July 22nd and accused of enticing a minor. He was also a public school teacher. According to state code, a candidate may withdraw by filing a notarized statement of withdrawal no later than the close of business on August 11th, 2026. West Virginia election law does not permit the Republican Party to fill the vacancy on the general election ballot created by Pritt's withdrawal. The Democratic candidate for this seat is Matthew Anderson. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, this is Eric Douglas in Charleston.
American Electric Power has agreed to buy one of the nation's newest coal-fired electric plants. As Eric Douglas reports, it also comes with permits to build a natural gas plant.
The Longview Power Plant in Maysville, West Virginia, near Morgantown, was completed in 2011. It can generate up to 700 megawatts of electricity, but the plant has been plagued by defects, construction issues, and bankruptcies. In 2019, the owners announced plans to build a natural gas plant and a solar array that would add another 1,250 megawatts, but that hasn't happened yet. An AEP spokesperson said in a statement the purchase of the plant and the additional development will not directly impact customer rates for Appalachian Power customers. Emmett Pepper, the policy director for Energy Efficient West Virginia, noted that the plant had been in and out of bankruptcy, and he said he was glad ratepayers won't get stuck with a bill on this one. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, this is Eric Douglas in Charleston.
22 projects that serve children and families across West Virginia are set to receive a total of more than $2 million. Here's Eric Douglas again.
The money comes from the Child Advocacy Center grant funding. According to a press release from the governor's office, the money will strengthen the state's multidisciplinary response to child abuse and neglect through a coordinated, child-focused approach. The grants are administered by the Justice and Community Services section of the West Virginia Division of Administrative Services. The roughly $100,000 grants for each group will go to support services like intake, investigation, and follow-up for abuse victims ages 3 to 17, along with forensic interviewing, mental health services, advocacy, and case coordination. To see a full list of the grant recipients, visit our website at wvpublic.org. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Eric Douglas in Charleston.
You're listening to West Virginia Week, and now some of our top feature stories from the past week. Federal health researchers at the CDC have a new report about black lung disease among the most experienced coal miners in Appalachia. They're suffering from the incurable disease at the highest rates in nearly half a century. For the Appalachian Mid-South Newsroom, Justin Hicks reports.
57-year-old Tim Balthus visits New Beginnings Pulmonary Rehab in Norton, Virginia twice a week. He lives with an advanced stage of black lung disease. And here he does light exercises like walking on a treadmill at just 2 miles an hour to help strengthen his lungs.
This is a normal walking pace for me. If I'm doing this pace, not talking, but I'm carrying something, that gets you out of breath too.
Balthus knows there's no cure, but he hopes regular checkups and exercises will grant him more time to celebrate milestones like family birthdays and graduations.
God's not done with me yet. I've been obedient to him, and now he's given me back to see my grandbabies.
New Beginnings director Marcy Freeman says more miners are coming through her doors. And what scares her is that they're younger, and their lung disease is advancing more rapidly.
I've never seen patients like this. I've never seen them this sick, this rapid of progression. It's just amazing to me that these men are able to walk around and live and breathe, that they're alive.
Today, researchers at the CDC's National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health published new research. It indicates rates of black lung disease in central Appalachia are as high as they were half a century ago. As many as a third of longtime working underground coal miners may have the disease. Lead researcher Scott Laney says these rates of disease rival the 1970s. That's when Congress passed a law requiring mine inspections and dust control standards, and for 2 decades, disease rates plummeted. Laney says the recent growth is due to mining operations digging the thinner coal seams left in the region. Separating those small amounts of coal from a mountain requires cutting through lots of rock, which generates toxic silica dust.
Now we're seeing almost all of these miners with mixed dust pneumoconiosis, which includes silica and coal dust.
The National Mining Association represents coal companies, and they say safety measures to mitigate dusty mines have improved, and sick miners could have been exposed years ago before new technology was in place. But Laney says there's no question in his mind but the prevalence of black lung disease is still growing. In the research he wrote, the data is a bellwether, not the remnant of an ongoing problem.
Nobody is doubting this whatsoever. I mean, especially if you live here in Appalachia like we do. You see it at the post office and the grocery store every day.
To curb this growing problem, the Federal Mine Safety and Health Administration created stricter limits on the amount of silica dust coal miners can legally be exposed to. But mining companies sued. The Mining Association says they support lower dust limits, but they want allowances for other methods to protect miners, like dust filtering helmets. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has frozen enforcement indefinitely. That delay really frustrates Drew Harris, a lung doctor in Southwest Virginia who treats patients suffering with black lung disease.
It's outrageous that these are the numbers we see in 2026. We know how to prevent it. There's no mystery here. We need better protections to be enforced.
The Mine Safety and Health Administration declined to comment until the research letter was public. But legal briefs show the federal mining agency is holding private meetings around changing the safety rules. So for now, it's still unclear what future silica dust protections may or may not be in store for coal miners.
This story was produced as part of the Appalachian Mid-South Newsroom, a collaboration between NPR and several public radio stations in West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Visit the special series page under the News tab on our website to find a link to this story and more. The West Virginia Manufacturers Association has just launched its inaugural Coolest Thing Made in West Virginia tournament. Nominations are open now. Maria Young caught up with WVMA President Bill Bissett to find out what organizers hope from the competition and what makes a really cool product.
Tell me a little bit about the competition and where do things stand right now?
Well, we just launched the competition, and this is a program very similar to what we see in a lot of states around the country. It's been very successful in other states. We wanted to bring it to West Virginia because the main thing we do as an association is tell the story of manufacturing in West Virginia. And I don't think everyone realizes, how diverse the companies are that we have. Handmade wood furniture. We have, small family-owned companies, and we also have companies like Toyota and Nucor. So a lot of interesting companies. They all make important things to our lives. And I think it'll be interesting to see what's nominated because I think you'll have very popular West Virginia-centric products like Mr. B's potato chips that pretty much everybody knows and has pride about that. But also I think technology is a factor too. When I've talked to my friends in other states, they'll often tell me a lot of times it's not what you think will win. It may not be that, cultural touchdown that we all know. It may be some type of technology that's new and pretty darn interesting, and people vote for that.
So right now, nominations are open. Can you nominate yourself or your own company? And what's after the nomination process?
Companies themselves are most welcome to nominate their products, and kind of tell why they think they're the coolest thing. I think you'll see vendors do it. I think you'll see customers or people that see, products on store shelves. I think that's the challenge. If it touches a consumer, that's going to be a big advantage. I was talking to our friends in Kentucky, and I think in their first year, the Corvette won the competition, which is, hard to beat. I can see everyone would think that, but at the same time, it'll be interesting to see kind of where this goes. And this is our first year doing it. We're going to learn a lot from this.
Right now, nominations are open, and then the voting, I think, opens to the public for a couple of weeks. Is that right?
Yes. You can go to our social media and find more information, but the main thing we're trying to do is just really showcase things made here in West Virginia. Manufacturing, there's billions of dollars coming online in these next 3 quarters. Everything from steel, titanium, iron ore batteries, a lot of growth in manufacturing in West Virginia in the near term. But also we've had manufacturers that have been here for 100 years. And I think all of those have interesting products and interesting stories to tell.
So there will be a top 5 announced, I believe, mid or toward the end of September. And then from there on, I guess it's National Manufacturing Day, you guys will announce a winner.
Correct. We're going to announce Manufacturing Day in the Eastern Panhandle in Martinsburg. That's kind of our breadbasket now of manufacturing. It's grown tremendously. And we thought that'd be a good coinciding manufacturing month, which is October, to announce it on October 2nd. And we're excited. We're excited to see what happens, which is makes you a little nervous, but also very excited.
Bill, I think you're probably a good person to answer this question. What is cool? What does cool mean?
I think it goes to the individual. But that's what I was talking about earlier. It could be something that has a historic connection to West Virginia, something that when people think of manufacturing in West Virginia, they think this product. Or it could be technology. It could be a new product that is just so cutting edge that, wow, I didn't know we made it. I mean, Constellium had recently had materials that went in the Artemis II a space launch. I mean, that if you're a West Virginian, you take a lot of pride in that. So that's pretty cool. So we'll see where all this takes us.
What is it that the West Virginia Manufacturing Association wants to achieve with this competition? What are you hoping comes out of this?
Well, I think first and foremost, a better understanding of manufacturing in West Virginia. I mean, we're known as an energy state, obviously, coal, natural gas, things like that. But manufacturing plays a major role, not only in employment, but creating the products we need in our daily lives. And it's growing by leaps and bounds right now. So there are opportunities, I think, for West Virginians. I mean, we have every company we work for is concerned about their workforce. So there are opportunities in manufacturing in West Virginia. But, I think that, but also to have some fun with it. This isn't, just talking about our economic data or number of employees. This is kind of talking about the products that touch our lives.
That was Bill Bissett, president of the West Virginia Manufacturers Association, talking with Maria Young about the inaugural Coolest Thing Made in West Virginia tournament. More information on the competition is at our website. Data center development is a fast-growing industry with projects popping up in seemingly every corner of the country, but that's not been the case in West Virginia so far. For the Appalachian Mid-South Newsroom, Chris Schulz reports state officials are rolling out the red carpet for the expensive and increasingly expansive projects.
West Virginia is largely untouched by data centers today. When completed, the 1.3 gigawatt Monarch Compute Campus, currently breaking ground on the banks of the Ohio River north of Point Pleasant, will become the state's first, and the largest on Earth. For the past 4 months, Randy and Marcia Frame have lived with the daily noise of the construction as their neighbor. The Frames asked their voices not be used because they've recently entered into a tentative agreement with the project's developers. They want to stay. But with plans to expand the site's capacity even before the first building is erected, 60% of homeowners in their neighborhood have already agreed to sell to the developers.
It's not that data centers haven't existed. There have not been a lot of these facilities executed at this scale, and none yet in the state of West Virginia. So we actually don't know what the economic impacts of this are going to be.
Amy Margolis is the executive director of Tucker United, a grassroots coalition. Across West Virginia, at least 5 large-scale data centers are in various stages of development, including one with its own natural gas power source, known as a microgrid, in Margolis' community.
We're just trying to understand, what is the scope of this project and how could it affect our water? How could it affect our land? How could it affect my children?
West Virginia is trying to catch up to its neighbors with House Bill 2014. Passed in 2025, the law allows data centers to establish microgrids and prevents any local control like municipal zoning or noise ordinances. Proponents say the law creates a single regulatory standard that provides developers a clear, predictable set of rules, something Chris Morris, director of West Virginia's Data Economy Office, argues will help the state remain competitive on a national scale. In an email, Morris also referenced the law's creation of a data center liaison to review applications and address concerns of local stakeholders. Margolis and others remain unconvinced.
We're not saying, we're anti-data centers. We're saying, look, for us in Tucker County, this is a local issue. We feel like this project in this location, in this process, is not right for us.
Analysts like Kelly Allen, executive director of the nonprofit West Virginia Center on Budget and Policy, say it's been difficult to analyze the proposed benefits of data centers because it's unclear what the actual scale will be.
Those eye-popping numbers are usually based on maximum build-out scenarios that are often done in phases. They can often take years or even decades if they come to fruition at all.
To add to the uncertainty, West Virginia has provided ample tax breaks to data center developers, significantly reducing the primary benefit for a community landing a data center. Under HB 2014, 70% of all tax revenue is diverted to the state's coffers, leaving only 30% for local governments. Mike Pushkin is the chair of the West Virginia Democratic Party. Although his party makes up less than 10% of the state legislature, they have vowed to make reinstating local control of development a priority in the upcoming legislative session.
If we're going to do this, we should do it like other states do it and do it right and allow for the people to have a say-so in who's putting a data center in their backyard.
Members of West Virginia's Republican supermajority have also indicated interest in reforming the law. Until then, the state's centralized data center development will continue. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Chris Schulz in Morgantown.
For nearly 100 years, Snuffy Smith has been a staple of newspaper comic pages, though these days it's easier to find him online. Snuffy Smith was brought to life by artist Fred Laswell in the 1930s, but now the strip is written and drawn by John Rose, who lives in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley. Inside Appalachia's Mason Adams spoke to Rose about drawing the famous hillbilly.
How did you become Snuffy Smith's cartoonist?
I was working as an editorial cartoonist and was a member, I still am a member of the National Cartoonist Society. And we have an annual meeting. And at this meeting, I was talking with a fellow editorial cartoonist, and he told me that he was working as an assistant on a syndicated comic strip. And I didn't really know that comic strip cartoonists used assistants. Ever since I was a child, I've always wanted to be a comic strip cartoonist. And I thought maybe this was a way I could enter the world of comic strip cartooning. So I thought about it, and the first comic strip really that I thought of was Snuffy Smith. I had grown up reading it in my papers in Covington, Virginia. I loved it. I didn't always understand the gags when I was a kid, but I loved the artwork. I didn't know Fred Laswell, who was the longtime cartoonist on the comic strip, but because I was in the National Cartoonist Society, I had access to his physical address and phone number. I just did a couple sketches. I did a sample Sunday comic strip. I did some character sketches, and I just mailed it in a package with some of my other work. Fred Laswell was a legend in the comic strip business. He drew this comic strip for over 60 years, and he just had a personality that could light up a room. Like, everybody loved him. He was a true legend. So as a cartoonist, you get a lot of rejection. When I sent that out, this was just a cold call. And when I sent it to him, I thought I might hear a thanks, but no thanks, or I might get a rejection letter of some kind back from him. So I didn't know if I'd hear or not. But about 2 weeks after I mailed him the package, it was a Saturday, it was lunchtime, and I was eating a nutritious lunch of Cocoa Puffs. And the phone rang, and I picked up the phone, and the voice on the other end said, "John, this is Fred Laswell." I kind of like choke on my Cocoa Puffs. I was surprised that he had called, and he said, word for word, he said, "I got the packet of samples that you sent me, and I really like the way you draw big noses." So it ended up, to make a long story short, he hired me as his inking assistant. Basically, he would write the comic strip, he would sketch out the comic strip, and then this was in the days of fax machines, he would fax me his beautiful sketches. Then I would take his sketches and ink those in, scan them into the computer, kind of clean it up a little bit, email it back to him, and then he would, approve it or suggest changes. And so basically I worked with him like that for about 3.5 years as his inking assistant. I went down to visit him 3 long weekends, kind of over the time that I worked for him. He was in Tampa, Florida, and I was here in Virginia. And he didn't mind at all. He was very into technology. So we talked every day. I worked at the newspaper office during the day. I came home and then worked with him in the evenings. He was a wonderful man, a great teacher, a wonderful mentor to have. In 2001, he passed away, and King Feature Syndicate offered me an audition to become the cartoonist on the comic strip. It ended up they liked my work the best, so I've been drawing the comic strip ever since 2001. So that's kind of how I got into working on the strip.
That was comic strip artist John Rose speaking with Mason Adams. To hear the rest of that story and more, listen to Inside Appalachia Sunday mornings at 7 and Sunday evenings at 6 on West Virginia Public Broadcasting. That's it for West Virginia Week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week. As always, you can see these stories and more at wvpublic.org. I'm Bill Lynch.